Welcome to First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast. I'm your host, James Gardner, certified athletic therapist, certified strength and conditioning specialist, yoga instructor, human being. This platform, for the pros, by the pros, anybody in the performance space, and beyond. Welcome here to share in the stories of professionals, experiences, journeys, learning along the way. It's a platform to connect, to network, and to be a part of a community that cares, with conversations that matter, experiences that resonate, and generate ideas, thought-provoking, organic dialogue, passionate pros. Brought to you as always by First Star Therapy, Mobility Tape, Epic, and Benchmark Athletics, in association with the Canadian Athletic Therapists Association. It's First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast. Thanks for being here. Thank you for being a part of it. Welcome to First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy roundtable brought to you by First Star Therapy. I'm your host, James Gardner, and this is a platform for the pros, by the pros. Passionate pros, organic dialogue. Let's chat. Thanks for listening. Let's roll. Recording, and we're live, session 65. First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy roundtable brought to you, as always, by First Star Therapy and our primary sponsor, Mobility Tape, the only heat-activated kinesiology tape on the market. Live life with motion. Also brought to you by Benchmark Athletics. You can find them on Instagram at Benchmark Athletics, and Live Epic, where you can learn to live your epic. That's EPOCH at live.epic on Instagram. And as always, this podcast, this Zoomcast, brought to you in association with the Canadian Athletic Therapy Association. We are session 65. We have an amazing guest out on the west coast of Canada. Matt Lumsdaine was the first head therapist at Camosun College for 4 years and has since passed it on to his former students. He served as the only full-time therapist at the college clinic over the last 6 years and has had a huge student teaching emphasis over those years. Matthew serves as an AT at the college's AET Clinic and is an integral component of growth of the profession from within it. Currently, he still works at Camosun, but in a limited role, having branched out and is on his own, delivering home care treatments and guiding patients to better health. Housed in Victoria, British Columbia, Matt, thank you so much for coming on board, and really looking forward to jumping in here, sharing your story, and seeing where we can take this thing. I'll let you say hello, and away we go.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and just get out of the way. Obviously, I think everyone in Canada appreciates you kind of championing this whole take on introducing East to West and ATs uniting, and a nice platform for everyone to touch base and to promote our profession that needs it. I'm sure we're all happy to answer the questions of what an AT is and versus others, but you're obviously doing a great job in promoting that in yourself. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Awesome, man. Well, listen, I appreciate that. That's humbling. And more than anything else, giving your time to be here, and everybody who's here live listening, everybody who's picking up this podcast and sharing it outward. I think this is where it starts. And it starts from showcasing people who are well respected and doing different components. And I think the teaching part is massive. I think getting the West Coast and the East Coast to see that we can unite through times like this even, and maybe enhance this. This has been, it's been a really cool journey. And you came highly recommended from one of our student guests that we had on with our international session. Mike from out at Camosun College recommended to reach out to you and connect, and said that he had learned so much from you. And these are the kind of things that really draw this profession closer to my heart and draw me in to want to do more of this and find people like you across the country that can share your story. And I'm not one that believes in sort of comparing us to other professions to define who we are. I believe in defining defining who we are by defining what we do and how we do it. So that's where I want to go with you, if you're willing and able. And again, you're out on the West Coast. This is sort of like high peak dinner time, and you've probably been out riding your bike and doing all kinds of good things out there on the West Coast. So carving
Obviously,
it in, yeah, obviously, is bikes and good things out on the West Coast. And so again, really appreciate your time, and just kind of let's start from, I don't know, the beginning of time. In the beginning, there was AT. How did you find it at the beginning of your career? I think we lost him slowly, so we might have a little bit of.
That probably all started with an interest in the profession itself. Are we good?
We're kind of good. You're frozen in a blank screen over here, so we'll give it a reboot. It's no problem, I think. Nope, you're good now. Go for it again.
Okay. Yeah, it all started probably high school, and took an interest in the profession in its general sense, and shadowing days and all that. But skipping ahead after a degree at UVic in biopsych, working towards a minor in kin, I discovered that AET was an option, and learned a great deal about it early on. Thought maybe opportunity to be more of a big fish in a small pond versus the other way around potentially, plus local and all the connections that I already made. And it's nice to know that obviously on the West Coast here, it's quite an active community. So kind of feeding into the athleticism and longevity that all goes along with an active lifestyle throughout the years around here. So I thought it was a great place to start, and connected with some great people early. So that's where it all started, and graduated just over 10 years ago, I guess now, and been loving it ever since. And it's been an amazing journey so far, but just getting my feet wet, really.
Yeah, beautiful. And I love the sort of like the transitional pieces and the people that you meet along the way that kind of shift and shape you into who you are, and us into who we are as a profession. And it's such a broad ranging and broad reaching profession. When you went into the AT specific stream, where did you do your schooling? How did you sort of get through that? How did you navigate that? And did you feel like at the time you were really connecting, or has it connected more so since getting out of school and doing some of that work?
Yeah, so sticking in Victoria, BC here. So I went to Camosun College, and it was a brand new program at the time. I was part of the second class to graduate. There was only 5 of us in that class, because it wasn't yet promoted nationally and outwards as it was going through its accreditation process. But so it was an interesting journey for sure, but an exciting one to be one of the first groups, and a lot of passionate teachers to boot, to kind of help facilitate that, and they did an amazing job considering. I'd say that again, early on, you learn all the basics, as we all do, kind of thing, going through the program. And again, some amazing teachers, especially and Victoria and clinically, and Isabel Grondins and Connie Classens and Noreen Ortilla, all and many more. But they helped facilitate a great process. And I think again, as we all graduate, we kind of have the bare bones structure and lots to work with. And of course, what's great about the AT profession is that you can go in many routes, many angles. And so it's many courses since then that I've kind of delved in deeper into the clinical world and assessment world, and just finding my groove. But I think it's, you're only, I don't even know, an eighth of the way there, and it's not a knock in any way to any school or program. But I think as we go into career mode, and as we take more courses, and you never stop learning, and there's just so much to know, so much to learn. So I'd like to think I'm just, again, almost halfway there or so.
Yeah, and again, sort of a nice little segue to these teachable points with students and with professionals. When you think you're there, there's that's probably the biggest problem. When we stop learning and forget how to navigate new channels and these kind of things. So you bring up some amazing things that I want to dive into a little bit more, and I appreciate the pun with the bare bones and the things of learning along the way. The schooling part, obviously, you had some amazing people there to help you and help you find and mold you into AT and sort of shape that foundational piece. And then you transitioned to be that person for students right now while you were working there. I'd love to go into sort of some of the common, maybe not even common, but some of the learning curves for students that you identified in the athletic therapy education stream. There are only 8 schools in Canada. There are 8 in some states, in the U.S., if not more. So these 8 schools across the country, each one a little bit different. But were there sort of some common things that you would find with students as you were working in that space along the lines of driving home what this profession is or fully understanding this profession early on? Was that sort of part of the education, or was it pretty fluid with the ones that you dealt with?
Yeah, I've actually had the opportunity to help mentor to a degree students in the entirety of my 10 years there. And I've probably worked in about 5 clinics total, as well as with teams early on. And particularly the last 6 years being at Camosun College, every year I have maybe somewhere between 5 and 7 students shadow me per semester at that clinical setting, and that's kind of the MO of that clinic. It's there for that reason, and it's been interesting because obviously there's some great opportunities at that clinic, all the latest in modalities, and a great space to work at. And we have the track and an amazing gym underneath in partnership with PICE and CSI. And as far as the students go, every year is different. Every student's a bit different. I think they all do a great job, and they all come fairly well prepared into that kind of lab and placement setting. Generationally, I think there's some struggles for some more than others, and finding that balance, and that it is to be taken kind of seriously as if it was a job or as if it was an opportunity, rather than kind of getting out of that lab space, I think is always a bit of a challenge I see a year in and year out. So kind of getting out of that space and treating the public or students and athletes alike that are there for a reason. So I think that's one big struggle that's always perpetually there. That being said, I think this year is a particularly tough one for those students with COVID, losing half a year last year, and this year it's obviously tough to not get that full face-to-face opportunity in the class and lab setting. So I give them kind of all the props in the world for kind of battling through and sticking to it. I think if it was an opportunity, I'd be tempted to take the year off if it were me in those shoes. But so I appreciate that. But challenges, no, I don't know anything that jumps out other than them kind of switching and putting that different hat on and bringing it every day. It's a major challenge, and I was there too. We all were, of course, to kind of change your state from kind of being that tired, fatigued student in that world, probably working a part-time job, and then having to switch into a professional mode maybe before you're even ready, of course. And so it's just it's a pleasure to be a part of and to give back, and it's an opportunity to keep me honest as well, because they're all quite happy to keep me on my toes and challenge me. And I think all the patients, they only value, or they only gain from that opportunity to hear that interchange between preceptor and students.
Amazing. What great shares. And I think like that insight is just so refreshing to have people that are driven by the students, respect the students, respect that relationship, and continue to sort of keep your thumb on the pulse of what it takes to be a student, because I think there's a lot that goes into it. I think that's one of the things about the educators in the AT programs that I've been a part of is really understanding that each student is doing their best on that given day, and whether we evaluate their best to be good enough or not, like we're working towards something in terms of creating a profession, developing a profession, and trying to give back. And you touched on all these things that are so critical, and then getting out of the lab and getting into working with people and hands-on, like COVID, not to make this conversation all about COVID, but there's an obvious shift here, right? Where students are not getting that experience. So here in Ontario, there's a lot of mock-ups and sort of using partners and small lab facilitation where, you're not allowed to see athletes or put your hands on athletes, other than virtual. So have you navigated that space with students a little bit, or how are things working on the West Coast in terms of shadowing? And are clinics open where you are and what you're doing, or how are things flying out that way?
Yeah, no, it's a challenge for sure. I don't know all the in and outs from all perspectives in placement implementation. I know that there's quite a few that probably chose not to take students on, and understandably so in these times. So I think it's been a challenge for the college to find placements, and definitely quality placements. And again, navigating around, as you alluded to, that kind of opportunity to make the most of it and get your hands on where, when possible, when safe to do so, where you're not just watching from a distance, because it's hard to translate that. So I think it's been tough for the college. I'm not in it as much this year as I was the past 5 years, as we alluded to before, in the sense that I've taken a step away, and so I'm only there 1 day a week now. So it's my associates there taking the brunt of kind of carrying the load. I know they put in a lot of effort in all the breaks and lunch times and after hours to kind of help maybe bridge gaps where needed or where possible, to debrief on the day and that. And I think that's a bigger piece this year. Yeah, it's a tougher one for sure for all students involved. I think they've also added a semester. I don't know what it's like across Canada, but adding placements through kind of a spring, summer to kind of give more time to collect these hours and to gain placements, to kind of spread it out a little bit more to kind of help offset, which is great.
Right. Yeah. And continually having to adjust. And I think there's that mutual respect from the students towards, faculty and people teaching, that we're also, or they are also having to adjust on the fly too. So as we work together, this is sort of shaping what things could look like, and perhaps changing the way that this academic setting looks in the future as well. Maybe there are some really great silver linings and some opportunities here to change the way things have been done in the past, because maybe they're getting a little stale, or maybe there are some better ways to do it where we don't have to be in person for all these hours and doing all these things with tedious tasks. So some great insight. Now I'm going to come back around to your early history and sort of your undergrad. You said bio psych, right, at UVic, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So using that as an undergrad, and obviously a little bit of a different stream than most, I would think, moving into AT, there's usually kin or phys ed or something like this. How did you feel like that set you up, or how did that merge with AT? You're obviously a bright guy, well respected, doing lots of things. Teaching is important. Receiving students and working as a mentor is important, and just easy to talk to. Like, right off the bat here, and listening to you speak is a pleasure. So how do you feel like that blended, and how do you feel like that's worked for you in the AT world? And you also have a secondary, let's call it secondary to AT, a mutually exclusive or whatever, as an exercise physiologist, right? So you have a dual accreditation, and obviously very impressive resume. So how did that all blend together? I guess, how did you piece things together, and how do you feel those pieces fit into the AT profession, I guess, is kind of the summation.
No. Awesome. Great question. So coming out of it, the idea coming out of high school was kind of physio all the way. So it was all the general sciences in the first couple of years, and all the kin kind of undergrad requirements and planning towards that line. But I took a bit of an interest in the psychology, and particularly the brain and behavior side of things, which is the biopsych kind of model there. I still continued with kin through, but the biopsych kind of was kind of the main focus and thesis in the end. And the brain behavior model, understanding why we do the things we do, and risk and reward and all these things, just the brain in general, the cognitive abilities, and behavioral sciences and neuroscience and motor control, all these things, they kind of piqued my interest. As much as I liked the kin and everything that it stood for, I kind of got my bare bones around that, and then I just veered more towards the biopsych in that fourth year, basically. So I think bringing that back to today, I still utilize that quite a bit. I find without going maybe too deep into this world, which is vast, but kind of making the connections with people on the behavioral side of things, understanding the cognitive levels of pain and whether it's acute or chronic, and everything that goes into that from a biopsychosocial model, kind of making connections with people and hearing them, understanding them, taking the time, I think is just as important as anything else. And that's a big part of what I do, both from a teaching perspective and an assessment and treatment. And It's kind of made me who I am as a practitioner on that front. I
No,
lost the second part of your question, but I think I hit.
You hit absolutely everything, and the second part was sort of wrapped into all kinds of jumbled words, I think, at this point in time. But an amazing summation, and really piquing my interest currently as I navigate sort of closer to 15 years as a practitioner, and very sort of like, let's get that shoulder better, and treated a lot of athletes early on as their injuries, and as that athlete, having the opportunity to step back now and look at the athlete as a human being first, and an athlete as something that they do, as opposed to the opposite. Knowing who's in the room, knowing who's on the table, knowing them a little bit deeper than their shoulder hurts and they have a positive empty can test goes a long way, and challenge me or agree, or let's go down this road a little bit. I've had the opportunity to do some stuff with the fourth year students at Sheridan College this year, and had a lot of interaction at York University in the past as well, both clinically and on the sideline. And we take a lot of courses in Con Ed, like continuing education. Obviously, you've touched on it multiple times already. Like, continual learning is essential, but skills and certificates and tricks and modalities and these things, they hold value 100%. But if I could throw anything away, it would be those, and teach students a little bit further, a little bit deeper on making that connection be the first and foremost component of care. With a biopsych background, I would venture to say you might agree with that, but your take on that stance.
100%. I think I always give props to all the students that have shadowed me over the years, because I incorporate that right from the get-go, and I know it's a bit challenging as they come in and plan on doing their soap straight up and their above and below joints and all that stuff, and then I come in and then kind of put that aside almost to a degree, if I could say that. I guess I'm sure I overlap them, but I layer a lot in, because as you alluded to, a person comes first, and as far as a profession goes, if you don't have the trust of your athlete or your patient, nothing's happening, nothing's moving forward. They're not gonna get better because they don't trust you. They're not going to facilitate the program because they're not sure. So you need to find the connection. You need to be a bit of a chameleon, I find, and adapt and adapt on the fly, even as people go through their journeys. And obviously, everyone coming from a different walk of life and different experiences, and we don't always know what's going on the other side. So touching on the mental health side and all of that, but I always preach to the students to make sure that the first question when they talk to whatever Joe Smith at the beginning of a session isn't, so what's your problem? Why are you here, kind of thing. It's they'll get a bit of a talking to after that appointment for sure, as we debrief at the end to say, why don't you just ask them what their name is and what they do, and start to build a connection and try to earn that trust before you dive into kind of the nuts and bolts of it, which comes naturally to some more than others, and it's tougher stuff to teach, no doubt. You kind of have that, sometimes that knack, or you don't, to a degree, but yeah, I can't implore how important it is to build the connection and to take the time to listen. I definitely spend a bunch more time with a lot of my patients. An hour-long appointment is always standard with me, more often than not, to be able to take the time to hear what's changed and what's gone on and what's going on, and to take the time to go reassess and to do all the things, versus that temptation to jump on it, so to speak, and just go to where it hurts or what have you. So it's a very big piece of what I do, and it's a big piece of what I teach.
Amazing, and hopefully making broader connections with lots of people out there who do the same thing. I think this is in a time like this, where we're a little bit more introspective and have a little bit more time to reflect, perhaps we can start to shift focus here and start to move towards this model of empowering athletes, empowering patients to take on accountability, but in a manner that they can handle, and not be dependent on us as practitioners to fix them, right? And I think that
Absolutely.
comes full circle, and you talked on it. It's hard to resist when I say it hurts here, to not want to just go there, right?
Yep.
So what are some of the strategies that you use? I mean, you mentioned sort of ask them their name and ask them how they're doing and make a bit of a connection before you jump right to that shoulder and say like, oh, I know all the tests for the shoulder, so it's got to be one of those. Do you have sort of some general guidelines that you would sort of use with students or even practitioners that kind of are sort of using that model of get them in, get them treated, and get them out kind of thing?
Yeah, for sure. I think you touched on a big piece, which I'll come back to in a sec, but it's just kind of giving them, empowering and giving them tools. So I think first off, other than making that connection, as we alluded to already, in the sense of building that trust early on, but from there it goes into obviously the power of empathy and having sympathy for what is happening first and foremost. And then the biggest piece is probably the education. I'm big on educating. I'm sure that's said multiple times by many people, but which is great. But just imploring that like there's not just that one exercise to do. There's not one technique to do. It's more so letting the patient know what's happening, why, how important. The things not to do are just as important as what to do as far as an exercise goes. Explaining pain the best you can, and giving all the tools. So I think those steps are again taking the time to listen, taking the time to build a connection, taking the time to educate, whether that's bringing out some pictures or a model or whatever it is to show what's going on and why, is a strong tool in helping people understand their own pain, and that they don't necessarily just have to depend on you and have to come back or they're sewered, so to speak. And so from the education point, obviously, like you said, if you could throw away kind of one thing, treatment is kind of an interesting phenomenon that way, because obviously there's umpteen styles and techniques out there, and everyone's got their go-tos and their favorites. And at the end of the day, I think if the patient and athlete understands how they can help themselves, and the timelines and what everything means, and the concerns and all those things, it's way more powerful long term. And that's the biggest thing I can give most of my patients, on top of the obvious treatment and programming.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's amazing. And to hear you say that and to hear you highlight that, it goes such a long way. We've had any number of guests on here that have talked about, what might be more important than anything is that listening piece. And that brings us back to the mental health component as well, as we don't have to be experts in mental health. But I think in these times, again, COVID or non-COVID times, the ability to listen, but maybe even beyond listening, is that ability to truly hear what's going on and connect with that athlete. I've found it quite difficult to navigate, some of these times where you can't necessarily shake somebody's hand, because I think that tells a lot, in terms of how they're feeling that day, or are they making eye contact, and these kinds of things through screens. This two-dimensional world is not the 7 dimensions that we're used to, in terms of having somebody walk into a room and being able to feel all of those other things. So it's some really great insight, and I think I'm just making notes as you're talking, because I think there's a ton of stuff that we can dive into here and go down lots of different channels. Maybe not this evening, but certainly into the future, where a lot of this dialogue begins further dialogue, and there's so many connections here across the globe with this profession and other professions, and that kind of brought me full circle back to sort of defining AT and leaving it sort of relatively loosely formed in terms of its definition, and non-comparative in nature, because I feel like when we get into that comparison of I'm kind of like that person but not really, but they can do certain things and I can't, do you find navigating that pretty difficult, or do you feel like no, AT can pretty much do whatever? We have a broad skill set. I can work with every human being who walks in, who wheels in, who may have use of their lower limbs, who may not, who may be suffering from any number of things. Where do you stand on sort of that defining AT and how you go about doing that in your daily life?
Yeah, I think that's a big one we've all encountered. I think when you come out of it, there's always in any profession a sense of pride in what you've done and what you've accomplished, and the road you're planning on traveling on, if you're planning on sticking it out with said profession. I think it just comes kind of with maturity and experience that as you just said, that the name that no longer starts to define you. It's more about what you do and what you bring day in and day out that defines you. And that will hold true, and that will carry forward and carry more weight than any initials and any designation. I think that the beginning, it's a popular question with all the students. They all want to know how do I, I keep getting asked by parents and friends, how are we different than X, Y, and how do you describe that? And like you said, there's a lot of avenues that ATs can go in. And at the end of the day, we're all just here for a common means of kind of helping people get from A to B, maybe trying to implore a little bit more functionality and long-term health on that front, and maybe trying to get them there a little quicker or what have you. But again, that totally depends on the individual and what steps they take to get there. So yeah, I don't know. I think that about sums it up on that front.
Yeah, no, again, just nailed it completely, and more to write down. I think that's it. It's what you bring day in and day out. It's not a title. It's not the modalities that you house. It's not the certificates you have on your wall, but it truly is. It's those interactions and what your patients walk out with, right? A little bit better, a little bit more educated, a little bit less dependent on you, and a little bit better because of that on the other side. So really brilliant stuff. And I'm making notes here to come back to at some point. We're going to end up having a weekend of this, just discussing this, I feel. Perfect. At this point in time. Yeah. Beautiful. So you're out in Victoria. You're a West Coaster. It's an active population out there. I'd love to sort of walk through your transition from Camosun, working there, and now sort of venturing out, and what you're trying to do, so long as it's not top secret and you're willing to discuss it, and how that works. Like we in Ontario, and maybe Toronto, think that we're potentially the center of the universe at times, but out on the West Coast, I have this vision, at least personally, of the West Coast being very active and very outdoorsy and very engaged. And I feel like that's an environment that, like, athletic therapy would just slip right in and be accepted and be very diversified out there. You're doing some home care stuff right now. I'll let you kind of walk us through that journey, because I think it's important to hear from within this profession where it can go, and it doesn't have to be defined by these hours at a college or with a pro team. It can be defined by you bringing it day in and day out, like you said students do, like you've defined any professional and any human is what they do on a repeated basis. So I'd love to hear where you're going. I'm sure many would.
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. I think again, I don't know where everyone's heads are at, but for sure there's a lot of interest in getting going with the program and following sports. I'm sure I'm with a lot of the majority of that thought. For sure, I'm entering into this program of athletic therapy. It's just a matter of time now before I'm with an NHL team, no doubt. If I just put on a few hours and kind of carve out my path and make a couple connections, it should be easy with perseverance. But it took a few weekends of working with kind of some U14, 15, 16 Canada hockey camps, those 30-hour weekends that all ATs can kind of relate to, and as well as being in the rain on days on end, with kind of some lucky enough to work with some kind of early Rugby Canada camps and that kind of thing early on. But it was kind of a quick realization that my passion was to be kind of more hands-on, and for me in particular anyways, going back to maybe the biopsych stuff, that I was more interested in kind of clinically breaking down, maybe how do I say it without breaking down more of the puzzle. I like the chronic stuff. I like the challenges. I found it challenging going back to maybe the center of the universe thing there on the East Coast, but I think maybe teams out here don't have the same kind of reputation, so to speak, and the same commitment to kind of this profession with teams. So it's hard to get going, I think, out here, versus there's a lot of great teams on the East that really kind of promote and help facilitate an AET with the teams in that realm. So it helped push me to kind of get more clinical. So I went from there to clinic and finding my groove. Eventually, again, fortunate enough to kind of come full circle to Camosun College, and And there's a lot of great people that made that happen. Again, the Connies, the Isabels. I think that the placement was, the clinic was opened up to help the students first and foremost, and I had a great time with that. I did 4 years with the Camosun Chargers, looking after all those athletes, which was a great opportunity that I was thankful for. But I still found that day in and day out, I kind of enjoyed the challenge of, I think maybe a lot of people could relate to this in our profession too, but those patients that come in and say they've seen umpteen therapists and they haven't got there yet and they can't figure it out, and who doesn't love a challenge kind of thing. And just there's always a little bit more to that connected me and grounded me there versus trying to get that athlete ready for the next day, which I think for those out there that do that, which there's a lot of course, full props to them, because it's a tough gig to be kind of constantly doing everything you can to have them ready and to appease the coaches and the training staff and that. And I understand that as well from those 4 years and beyond that. But yeah, it brought me to clinical. So I switched gears a couple of years ago to full-time clinic at the college. And so I love the variety of patients. I still have my amazing international athletes on one end of the scope, and I have my double hip 80-plus-year-olds kind of thing at the other end. And I like variety. I like the challenge. I like the puzzle of breaking it down and the education and teaching everyone that they can be functional and they don't need to fit whatever stigma, and they can kind of battle back from whatever they got going on. COVID hit, and clinic and everything else obviously came to a stop across the globe. And when government kind of approved the return, the college wasn't quite open yet, as they kind of no doubt planned and took the time as needed to kind of plan for the students to come back, which is obviously the main goal there, the main business. And so our clinic didn't open its doors till mid-August. So it kind of pushed me out to kind of do my own thing. And in late May, patients kind of emailing and checking in, and when can they see me, how can they see me, and then I've always had the business license and the contract, and everyone's got a treatment table and the gear somewhere in the closet, no doubt. So I just made sure I took all the precautions and got all the gear needed to make it safe. It started out with meeting in parks and meeting on patios and garages and all that fun, interesting stuff that seems like you're working on the black market to some degree or something like that. But from there, again, taking extra precautions, it just kind of started to open up into all the masking up and going into homes. And it just grew and grew and grew more than I could imagine. Just word of mouth, and whether it's a neighbor kind of being nosy, or whether it's a family member within the household or what have you. But it's really taken off. It's been amazing, actually. I'm sure this will turn into opening up shop at some point when I get a little bit overwhelmed and tired of driving home to home and that hustle game. But honestly, it's pretty cool. I don't know if for those that are thinking about it as an opportunity, entrepreneurship wise, or just as a bridge gap. But I think some of the pros that I wouldn't have considered before are just how relaxed everybody is in their own home. Again, COVID aside, as well as far as long as all those precautions are taken, all those questions, we'll keep throwing that out there just to make sure that it doesn't look more shady than it is. But with all the questionnaires everyone knows and loves. But moving forward, everyone's so comfortable. You're not in a clinic setting that can get stale or what have you. I've learned so much from so many different families, and everyone's just, they didn't just rush to their appointment and have to battle traffic and parking, and they're coming in all frazzled. So that's the biggest thing, going back to kind of the psychology aspect of it. It's nice to start on that foot when you're kind of getting going with how are things going with your pain or whatever. Other than that, it's great seeing the space people are in. We all talk about, hey, you could just tie that band to that doorknob or that banister or whatever. But when you can actually see it in action, you can kind of make those comparisons, and that way there's no fooling around and no mistake in what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it. So there's been a lot of power in the facilitation of exercise programming versus going to maybe in a couple's home that are through and through Dutch, that that interpreted some tubing and band work as an actual bike tube of wrapping it around twice around their legs and trying to do a monster walk or something like that. So, so it's been kind of refreshing to be able to pick those off and nice and helpful. So that's where I'm at. Yeah, it's been awesome. I think it's eye-opening. I would have judged anybody probably back in my day or in a clinical setting thinking who goes home to home, there must be something wrong with them socially, or maybe they don't have their actual certification or whatever. But to see how much people take to it and how much they facilitate the program and how much they appreciate has been eye-opening for sure.
Yeah, and such great angles on this that I'm sure not a lot of people have spent a lot of time thinking about, and you've hit on multiple times this evening, and just sort of stripping things away. So strip away the equipment, strip away the facility, and like show what you got as a therapist, because you take away all the fancy stuff, and this is what it comes down to, the nitty-gritty of who you are as a person, who you are as a practitioner, how you deliver information and education. And I love that piece of like, get them to the banister and watch them walk up the stairs. It hurts when you do that. Okay, now I can actually have you do that instead of pulling over this 2-stair set that I have, or not having a staircase, or these other things. And that next part, which really, really interesting, is that frazzled piece of having somebody come in and not finding parking and rushing in. Now it's you. Now you're the therapist and you're the one frazzled. So you've really we flipped the entire scenario. And I think that's beautiful, because now, again, same thing, you're maybe exploring empathy on the other side a little bit. Now you can really feel what patients are going through when they're coming to see you, because you're moving patient to patient, and you understand all the things that you have to block out of your day and account for scheduling wise and traffic and all those other things. So cool, really, really amazing stuff. And I think just eye-opening. I've kind of moved into the space of entrepreneurship since moving back from living abroad, and lots of cool different channels. And again, this profession, as with any in the performance space, the wellness space, the human space, so adaptable, because we are human, and we have the creativity, availability, and we have, working within those means. And I'm with you. I love that. It's like, yeah, it might be weird, maybe he doesn't have a certificate, but at this point, like, you're following all the precautions and all of the protocols that are in place. Like, going home to home is beautiful. And I think, I've been talking with any number of people, from bodybuilders to, gym goers and those that struggle. And the one thing that keeps populating in terms of, or one of the main things that keeps populating, is it's more the environment of having somewhere to go to do the thing. That's the driving factor in working out or being at the gym. It's that environment of having that space. You may have the equipment at home, but you don't have those other parts, right? So changing that, and the biopsych component to provide those tools to educate and empower in your own space. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And I hope this one resonates with a lot of people out there, as I know it will. So not done yet. I'd love to keep going here for a few more minutes at least. If anybody's live has any questions, feel free to type them into the chat. I'll get them over to Matt here as we get to the back end. Session 65 of First Star Let's Chat with Matt Lumsdaine. He is an athletic therapist and exercise physiologist on the west coast of Victoria, BC. We have session 66 going next week, same time, same channel, with Dr. Andrew Robb, a sports chiro. That'll be session 3 of 4 of our Tommy John education series. And then we are somehow into April already. So lots of good things coming in April. We have a Women in Sports education series kicking off the first Friday with women in sport, talking about women in sport with women in sport, and really an amazing series of people lined up for that, plus our regular Sunday guests. The first one being an amazing strength and conditioning coach down at Clemson University. She is fantastic, and look forward to having her on. So those are the next few guests, not to take away from this one. An amazing chat here with an amazing guy. Again, really well respected. We haven't met in person, but I look forward to hopefully meeting you at a conference or something like that when that's allowed. We have WFAT. We have that one coming up in 2022, I believe, in Winnipeg. It hasn't been canceled yet, so Winnipeg will be an interesting place. I've never been there, but those conferences and things, I think we can begin to, through these conversations and conversations like this, push as an person unifier of what this profession can be. I've been to a few. I don't know how many you've been to or if you've been to any, but this is the mode of this platform, is to connect people coast to coast, have conversations, allow these things to resonate, allow you to be seen and heard on this coast, allow this coast to do the same the other way, and everywhere in between, working into international space now as well. And really appreciate your time and sharing this outwardly. This is it's amazing to get to know your story and have the exposure to what Camosun and all those people out there are offering. And we have sort of some common ground. Joe Hurdebeest has been on here, and she was a colleague and is a friend and is out that way now teaching. And you brought up the neuroscience and the cognitive abilities and motor control and all of those components. I think in my later years, as I study, and continue to study and continue to learn, I would say that we could build more of this into the AT education system in terms of understanding the human and understanding the biopsychosocial stuff, because we're much more than tinkering with shoulders when we're tinkering with university athletes or pro athletes or amateur and adolescents. Do you feel like there's space for more of this to be filtered in?
Of course, yeah, for sure. There's always things, I think, as we go through the years and take extra courses and take up our own interests, that you think, boy, that would have been useful, of course. And I think everyone's along those lines. And every year, I'm sure every program gets a little bit better as to adding pieces that are needed, and especially nowadays with trying to hit all those competencies in lieu of the practical component and what's needed or what's important. But that's a big piece for sure. I know we had there's a great motor control program or course or class at Camosun already as it is, but there's always more that you can build on. Same with kind of fascial lines and their interconnectivity and all those things. But they do a great job at Camosun with just kind of giving you what you need to kind of to get going, so to speak, as many schools do. And again, Sheridan, I know, has a great reputation, and many others. But yeah, there's things that I would recommend for sure for students as they come out. Hey, if you don't have X piece or Y piece, and whether you feel weak in it or you just take an interest, luckily enough, there's a lot of those courses and more annually that come out, maybe more so when COVID's all done with, that you can actually get the hands-on practical. But there's a lot of great courses that have shaped me after the fact, and there'll always be that opportunity for students, I think, whether or not it's in the class or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's go down that line a little bit with the students and with the future of this profession. First year, second year, third year, fourth year, depending on how long your program is. That is where the foundation, the bones, the skeleton need to be built, right? All of the extra tools and the things that are, for lack of a better term, really sexy on Instagram and all of these other things, like it's hard and it's difficult not to jump to those things. Again, that's where it hurts. Let me do that thing. Like, we're walking around and in headstands with no shirts on, like that's what we're doing to prove our worth. Then let's do it. I mean, I guess I have to do that if everybody else is. How do you help navigate that stuff in terms of like delivering on the foundations, or really emphasizing that the school part is foundation, and the after graduation and sort of certifying, that's where the tools, you sort of enhance your toolkit based on your niche or based on your interests? Is that pretty easy to navigate, or with the students that you work with, or is that sort of a common dialogue?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's easy, because of course each student kind of has a different end game or idea of which way they want to go. So it's kind of, I guess, on an individual to individual basis, which I always try to build those connections with them one on one, and help navigate best I can and mentor with what's helped me, or what's knowing them or knowing where they want to go, what they might want to look into and pursue. Yeah, as far as kind of approaches go, definitely, other than kind of the biopsych cognitive side of thing and education, a big piece, and how I treat and how I assess and how I program, maybe more specifically, is on that functionality side of things, on controlling yourself first and having those prerequisite movements, and on trying to teach people how to move better versus move with more weight, as you alluded to already there. All the cool, sexy Instagram, Facebook, whatever kind of thing is nice, and it's nice to get that shot and that caption of yoga pose, whatever, and that. But I'm more into teaching and helping to facilitate, and hopefully trying to promote, just because it's near and dear and passionate to me, the functional side of things, and that it's great to have that PR and whatever kind of snatch or lift, and whatever it is, but ultimately I think in building resiliency should be the focus, and building again those prerequisite movements, and not just having the strength or the flexibility, but having the control, having the options, and that's of course, I think the FRC, FR principles are nailing it, hitting it out of the park, and be something that I'm quite passionate about, and kind of help facilitate with students with, and pushing them in that direction, just to give them a little bit of an understanding on that front, on more prevention and long-term health. But there's so many great courses out there for them after the fact. It just depends on where they want to go.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Building in some of those FRC things, and PRI, and anatomy trains, and all these different ones that have been trademarked, and that's the next thing, is like how do we sort of navigate everything? Everything becomes a trademark tool, and it's tough to call yourself a practitioner if you understand the physiology and the enactment of it, but haven't taken the course, right? You just can't call it that thing. So, but really some great packaged tools in FRC, and the other ones that come to mind as you're speaking are sort of, and I have no affiliation with any of them, but Postural Restoration Institute is fantastic in the US, and anatomy trains, you've touched on fascial lines and these kind of things, and Thomas Myers and what they're doing, and always have been doing, and I think just broadening the scope enough when you're out of school, and then finding what resonates with you. And I keep getting drawn to the picture behind you. There's a reflection off the water, and I think that's such a massive piece that I've late to the party on, is just stepping back, providing enough space to reflect, and really allow yourself to guide what's next, and where to go, and how to get to those spaces. And this has been an amazing chat. I've learned so much. I've taken a bunch of notes, and I feel like there's a lot of conversation in the future, whether between you and I, or between you, I, and a whole bunch of other people, or other people, bunch of people reaching out to you. If you're comfortable with it, and want to share your handle, you can do that on Instagram for people to reach out to you, or email. If not, you can always reach out. Listeners can reach out to me, and I can check with Matt and connect you, should that be the way. But Matt, I'll leave that in your court, whether or not you wish to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Anybody can reach me on Instagram for sure at lumsdaine.at, email, I should say, lumsdaine.at@gmail, and then AT on Instagram. Happy to chat with anybody. I think the mentorship thing is huge with the students, and it's something that I hold near and dear, and it's very important, and it works both ways, because we learn a lot from them as well. So any questions, I'm more than happy to answer, and happy to chat with you anytime for sure, and diving more into maybe our rehab ways, and how we actually do the things we do in more detail, but I'm sure there'll be lots of opportunity for that.
Yeah, that's great. And please reach out to Matt, reach out to myself, share this one with friends and colleagues. Maybe beyond even mentorship of students, is this mentorship between us and between each other.
Absolutely.
And within the profession. I think this, hearing your story, hearing where you come from, your background, it may open eyes to study that area a little bit more for somebody who's 15 years into practice, or 10 years into practice, or not quite sure where to go. And then boom, you just listen to a story, you hear the passion and the drive behind what you're doing, and all the people that you're impacting. And being out on the West Coast, maybe we don't hear from you too much because you're 3 hours behind us in time, but here we go. We're all in the same time frame when it gets out on podcast. And this has been great, Matt. I really appreciate your time. For everybody who's here live, again, thank you for being a part of this. this is where it starts and ends, is sharing this and listening and being a part of something bigger than ourselves. And that's a community that matters. That's a profession that matters. That's a profession that goes beyond titles. I truly feel that this is sort of a liaison type role as a profession. It connects a lot of different pieces in the medical space, in the wellness space, in the mental health space, in the human space. And this has highlighted that over and over and over again. So truly, thank you for your time. This has been fantastic. It's been session 65 with Matt Lumsdaine out on the west coast of Canada, brought to you by First Star Therapy, Mobility Tape, our primary sponsor, and Live Epic, Benchmark Athletics, in association with the Canadian Athletic Therapists Association. It's First Star Let's Chat. It's Matt Lumsdaine to close us out. Thanks again, Matt. I'll let you say goodnight, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks for connecting everyone across the board here. And like you said, networking is huge. So I appreciate you with providing this platform. I think you're coming up on a year, if I'm not mistaken, on this. So happy anniversary to you, and an amazing job you're doing. So keep it up. Thanks to Mike. Shout out to him for connecting us as well.
Absolutely. Thank you to all of those people. It is a year coming up on April 1st, and that sent shivers. I didn't even realize that myself until you said it. And so away we go. I don't know how it's been a year, but it's been a year. So I'll hang out for a couple minutes. But Matt, thanks again. And we'll talk soon. I have lots to bounce your way. Thanks.
Awesome. Take care.
Good night.
Good night, all.
Thanks again for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of this community. Check us out online, firststartherapy.com. That's FIRSTAR therapy.com. Or email us with feedback, consult@firststartherapy.com, CONSULT@firststartherapy.com, on Instagram @firststar.therapy, and our podcast host @letschat.at. This is First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast.